Because of the mass immigration, a disease that we've been rid of in North America made its way up through South America. As these migrants, they brought some of their cattle with them. So,
screwworms are a parasitic fly species that have a flesh-eating maggot stage that could cause billions of dollars in economic damage to the cattle industry as well as the local ecosystems if they were to re-emerge in North America. However, the claims made by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent are political bullshit, to put it nicely, and they're just trying to weaponize this disease outbreak to further anti-immigrant rhetoric, even though this topic should be an apolitical one that we could all agree on. Hello everyone, I'm Worm Talk. I have a PhD in biology, and for fun, I make educational videos about parasites just to try to teach people about the cool world of it. And I have zero desire to make political videos. However, as a scientist, when there is misinformation spreading about my field online, I find it is my responsibility to chime in and correct the record, regardless of who is saying this misinformation. So as I just showed you, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is claiming that beef prices are on the rise, and this by itself is a true statement. However, screwworms are only one of several factors contributing to these rising prices. So let's talk about how screwworms are increasing these beef prices, and more importantly, what is actually causing this disease outbreak of screwworms. You see, screwworms, as I briefly mentioned, are a type of parasitic fly that leaves maggots that leave large gaping wounds on any animal that they infect, with cattle being one of the main victims of this parasitic fly, and if left untreated, a cow will typically die within 1 to 2 weeks of getting this infection. Now, we successfully eradicated this parasite from North and Central America between the 1960s and the 2000s, and ever since then we've held this parasite at bay, as it is still prevalent in South America. Now, we do this by releasing sterile flies at the Darien Gap, forming a sort of artificial wall of protection, preventing this parasite from coming back up to North and Central America. I made a longer video about that specific topic and the biology of it. If you want to see that, I will link it below, but for the purpose of this video, I want to keep it relatively brief and really talk about why this outbreak is popping up again. So this parasite has an obvious economic burden, and fortunately it was successfully eradicated from countries like Mexico about 40 years ago. However, over the last year and late 2024, there were reports of this parasite being found in cattle in Mexico, with one report even saying that this parasite was only 70 miles away from the American-Mexico border, which is quite concerning as this is a very damaging parasite. Now, as a result, the current administration temporarily suspended all live animal trade with Mexico, which was a good decision. This was the right choice to make to prevent this parasite from spreading in North America if it made its way over the border. However, due to the fact that Mexico used to send over 1 million heads of cattle to America every year, this is obviously going to increase the beef prices, as basic supply and demand indicates that there's less cows coming in, so beef prices might increase a bit. However, now you're probably wondering, how did these flies actually get into Mexico if we have this barrier preventing them from coming north? If it's not immigrants bringing this fly across the border, then how is it occurring? Well, simply, it's an illegal cattle trade process that is occurring in South and Central America. You see, countries that are endemic with this parasite, meaning that this parasite is present all the time, these countries, they raise the cattle and then they are illegally smuggled into countries like Mexico, bypassing the safety screening checkpoints and allowing these cattle that are infected to be integrated into the normal meat markets. Specifically, it's drug smugglers that are responsible for doing this in a process called narco ranching, in which traffickers will clear forest and run cattle as a method to launder money that they make from the drug trade. Now, a 14-month investigation found that the illegal cattle trade is a convenient way for drug traffickers to move their product north and allows for the drug runners to diversify their income. So this is how the parasite has been able to get past our security measures. It's not from some immigrants traveling with a cow, it's large-scale illegal cattle trade. And when you think about that, it makes a lot more sense. Immigrants that are leaving their countries aren't going to be traveling with large domesticated animals through forests and mountains that are covered with predators. Instead, they would much more likely sell off these large, slow animals to help fund their travels, and it makes a lot more sense that these drug traffickers bringing in hundreds of cattle every year, if not thousands, are more likely to illegally smuggle this parasite past the border. Now, there are several other factors leading to these increased beef prices beyond just this parasite preventing some cows from being traded with Mexico. You see, domestic US production of cow is also very low currently. In fact, it's at a 74-year low of domestic cow production. And this is due to a few different reasons as well. One of the main reasons being that raising a cow in America is just very expensive currently. You see, in the main areas where cattle are produced, there's been several droughts over the last few years. This has made the pastures dry up and made the cow farmers more reliant on cattle feed. And because of these droughts, the cattle feed itself is more expensive. So these farmers are getting kind of a double whammy in that the natural feed and their supplemental feed is more expensive. So these biotic and abiotic factors have decreased their own domestic production. The parasite is preventing certain trade from occurring. And then there's also the tariffs, which are making it more expensive to import meat from other countries. So all these factors taken together are what is increasing beef prices. So to address the misinformation, no, Scott Besson, it's not immigrants that are causing the increased beef prices. It's illegal cattle trade spreading a disease, preventing us from trading with countries like Mexico. It's domestic production being hampered by increasing droughts, and it's tariff policies that are making it more expensive to bring in other competitors and making our own markets more vulnerable to these external factors that we can't really control. Thank you all for watching. If you like what I had to say, please leave a comment down below or give the video a like so that more people can find this video and help push back some of this misinformation that is being spread from the top. And if you want to learn more about parasites, please check out my other videos like the one I made on screwworm biology and our eradication campaign, as that's more the type of content I like to make. Again, I really don't want to do any sort of political coverage, but I felt I had to speak out against this misinformation because it was in my wheelhouse. So I hope you all didn't mind the slight deviation from my normal content, and I hope you have a good one. Happy holidays.